DJ Payne 1.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that my mic was muted. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the CEO Sports Show for September 8th, 2025. On today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the Ravens versus the Bills game, one of the best games that we've seen in a very, very long time. We're also going to be talking about why I think Josh Allen is the best quarterback in football. We're going to be recapping some of the Week 1 NFL happenings and going over who I think are some teams that really stood out from this weekend. Before we get into the video, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I got my producer Steph in the back. What's going on, Steph? How are you doing, bro?
Doing great, Chris. Happy to be here. More football today.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? I'm happy to have you here, my friend. Can't wait to get into everything that happened, but we'll start the show off with my ultimate take here. The Baltimore Ravens are still the best team in the NFL. I get it that the Buffalo Bills beat them, but I would also say this: if they played that game 10 times, I think 7 or 8 times the Baltimore Ravens win that game. Understand this: the Baltimore Ravens have the better football team. The Buffalo Bills have the better quarterback. That's just the way I look at it. If it takes what Josh Allen had to do in the fourth quarter for the Buffalo Bills to win at home against the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to say, if I were a Ravens fan, I would say, damn, I actually feel pretty good about my chances if we have to play them in Baltimore, if we have to go back and play them. I mean, look at how this game went. On the ground, they had 238 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt on the ground. Over the air, 11 yards per attempt, 209 yards from Lamar Jackson, 2 touchdowns. Quarterback rating of 94, passer rating of 144.4. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, I get it. This stings yesterday, but you have to look at the long-term picture. You're the best team in your division. No doubt in my mind about that. You're going to make the playoffs. So at that point, you're just like, hey, we have to hope that the Buffalo Bills slip up and we can potentially get the number 1 seed. But when I look at this Baltimore Ravens team, they have a really damn good offensive line. They have an amazing quarterback. They have receivers that fit with the quarterback. They have maybe the best running back in football. Their defense, even though it didn't show it yesterday, is a pretty damn good defense. So when I look at Baltimore, I think that this is the type of team, like this year's Baltimore Ravens, I think they could beat last year's Philadelphia Eagles. And I know the praise, even though they lost this game, it is a bit ridiculous, some people may think. But I just look at this team and I look at the long term and I just say, I don't know how many teams are stopping that football team. And Josh Allen putting on maybe the best performance we've seen in a very long time from a quarterback in the fourth quarter to pull ahead and win that game. I don't think that that's going to be something that he can replicate and the Buffalo Bills can replicate. I just think the Ravens are still a better football team. I think that they're the best team in the AFC, and they have no excuse this year. They really don't. Lamar has no excuse. John Harbaugh has no excuse. They got a team. And you want to know what? I say that. I'm telling you this right now. Lamar Jackson, he loves being in this situation. John Harbaugh, he loves being in this situation. You give these guys the type of talent that they have on this roster, they're cool with that. They don't mind the expectations. And the expectations are going to be big on this team because the Ravens, they've been knocking at the door. And when you look at how the Chiefs played on Friday, you wonder, hey, how good are the Chiefs this year? I still believe in the Chiefs because it's the Kansas City freaking Chiefs. But if the only team standing in front of you is the Buffalo Bills, and they had to do what they had to do to win that game yesterday, as a Ravens fan, you have to feel pretty damn good about that, in my personal opinion. Because how often is it that you're going to see a quarterback performance like that? It took that to beat the Ravens. And when you look at quarterback performances, that might be the best we've seen in the past 3 or 4 years. I mean, that was an insane performance. It's going to be hard to replicate that, especially if they end up playing this playoff game that they most likely will play, because I think all roads lead to a Buffalo-Baltimore AFC championship. I know it's crazy to just count out the Chiefs, but when I look at those two teams, I think that they separate themselves from the rest of the pack in the AFC. And I think that this team is going to be an absolute wagon to deal with. I mean, I don't know if there's many teams that want to deal with that team in the playoffs. And when you look at what Derrick Henry provides to Lamar Jackson, he's part of the reason why Lamar Jackson's game went to a completely different level playing with Derrick Henry. You saw when the Buffalo Bills were like, look, we are going to crowd the line of scrimmage because we don't want Derrick Henry to go off on us. Opens things up for Lamar. Lamar is the type of passer that, man, if you have teams that are going to play that many guys at the line of scrimmage to shut down Derrick Henry, he's gonna shred you over the air. So, Steph, what did you think about this game? Am I far off by saying that the Ravens are the best team in the NFL still?
I think talent for talent, Ravens are the best team in the NFL. However, the Ravens' worst enemy is the fourth quarter. And I think that moving forward, this game is going to put an asterisk on their defense. I think the defense is plays really well, has a lot of talent, lacks still week one, lacks a bit of continuity, but definitely fourth quarter chokes have been the Ravens' problem for the past couple seasons.
Yeah, no, they have been. But I still look at this team and you want to know what? That goes back to John Harbaugh, because honestly, John Harbaugh, to me, you have the team. You got to get it done. And this to me is going to show the type of organization that the Ravens are. Like, what I respect about the Philadelphia Eagles is that when they feel like they ran their course with a coach or a quarterback, they just get rid of the guy, right? Like, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl like 2 years prior to getting fired. But the Eagles said, no, we're not going to let this play out. We're pretty sure how this is going to play out. And I'm going to be honest with you, it could have hurt them last year, because when you look at, potentially moving on from Nick Sirianni, like they were talking about potentially moving on from him, you kind of look at things like that and it's like, man, I kind of think other teams should move like that, because if I'm the Ravens, I'm looking at John Harbaugh and I'm like, man, we're tired of the fourth quarter collapses. We're tired of not getting over the hump in the playoffs. And if you're the front office, I don't blame them for this at all. They built an extremely talented football team. They made calculated moves in free agency. But not only that, they've drafted good players year in and year out. Nate Wiggins is fantastic. What I saw from him yesterday, he looks like one of the 10 best cornerbacks in football right now. Slid to them in the end of the first round. Malachi Starks, Mike Green this past year. Kyle Hamilton a few years ago. He's one of the best defensive players in football, and he just fell in their laps in the middle of the first round. So when I look at the Ravens from an organizational standpoint, their front office is fantastic. Ownership, all that. It's a very well-run organization. And I think John Harbaugh is a good coach. But we have to ask the question, why do you keep collapsing in the fourth quarter? We have to ask the question, why haven't you been able to get over the hump in the playoffs? We have to ask the question, what is the struggle with the Chiefs and the Bills? Now, I get it. They beat the Bills last year in the regular season. But last 2 times they played, Bills won. So it's a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks right now. And I think when you look at Baltimore, still the best team in the NFL, but if they don't fix these mistakes and be more detail oriented, might be a problem for them. So let's move on to the next topic. Are we going to continue to lie to ourselves and say that Josh Allen isn't the best quarterback in the NFL because we're holding on to the fact that Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowls? But when you watch both of these guys play and you see how much Josh Allen elevates the talent around him and elevates the organization around him, there's a clear difference. Josh Allen is the better quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, especially over the past few years here, has not been the type of guy that's been carrying the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been very good within the structure of the Kansas City Chiefs. But when you look at Josh Allen, that is a guy who carries his football teams to victories. When you talk about quarterbacks who carry teams, the only 2 that I really think carry their team at the current moment is Josh and Lamar. But even with Lamar, I don't think that Josh Allen has the type of talent around him that Lamar Jackson does. The Bills' game plan is Josh Allen, go win us the football game. That's the structure of their team. He has been bailing out mediocre coaches. He's been bailing out a mediocre front office ever since he became the Josh Allen that we know. And it doesn't surprise me that yesterday he had one of the biggest comebacks that you'll ever see in the fourth quarter. Again, I think that we're in that era with Josh Allen where it's he's the tier one quarterback, and then you have the rest of your tier 1 quarterbacks. Because I don't believe Mahomes is doing what Josh Allen did yesterday. I don't believe Lamar Jackson is doing what Josh Allen did yesterday. I don't believe any quarterback in the NFL is doing with the Bills what Josh Allen is doing with the Bills. I mean, at some point, we have to look at this and say, we get it. Mahomes has the Super Bowls. And for a time there, Mahomes was the better quarterback. But in the year of 2025, Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen separates himself from the rest of the pack. And will this lead to the Buffalo Bills getting over the hump and winning a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't believe it will, because I still don't think from a roster perspective that the Buffalo Bills are a better team than the Baltimore Ravens. I just don't see that. But you can look and watch the games and say, that guy is just different from everybody else. What he does with his legs, extending plays, making throws down the field, but even in structure, I mean, this guy, he is just so fantastic. He's the best player in the NFL. It's not close. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. I personally don't think it's close. And right now, when you look at Josh Allen in the history of the NFL, I mean, why is it crazy to say that right now he's a top 10 quarterback of all time? I know, there's a lot of people who say, if Lamar Jackson wins a Super Bowl, he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks of all time. Well, if he's one of the 10 best quarterbacks of all time, you got to put Josh Allen in that list, because he's not better than Josh Allen. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. And when you look at the Buffalo Bills organization, they've been bailed out. Brandon Beane, I'm not a fan of him as a general manager. Sean McDermott, I'm not a big fan of him as a head coach. I'm not a big fan of the personnel around Josh Allen. Understand this, right? In this game against the Baltimore Ravens, they gave up 8.2 yards per attempt on the ground. They gave up 11 yards per attempt over the air. If this was any other quarterback in the league that did this, we would be like, holy cow, this guy is a top 5 quarterback. If this was Jaden Daniels that did that, or if this was Justin Herbert that did that, if this was Dak Prescott that did that, we would be like, wow, you got to consider this guy as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL because of what he just did. But Josh Allen doesn't. We're kind of just like, yeah, no, Josh Allen's great, but we expect that. But like, that's the craziest part about it. We expect him to do things like this. Whereas other quarterbacks, if they were to do something like this, we would be utterly surprised. But when Josh Allen does it, par for the course for him. I mean, he's incredible, man. He is incredible. And look, I hope he wins a Super Bowl in his career. He's too great not to. But I don't look at him as I look at Lamar, because I don't look at the Bills organization and hold them to the same level of respect that the Baltimore Ravens organization deserves to be held to. Because the Bills, unlike the Ravens, they're not always injecting their team with young talent. They're not always making strategic moves in free agency. They're not always re-signing or trading the right guys. This is an organization that makes questionable decisions. But it's all good at the end of the day because they have 17. And as long as they have 17, you could shoo them in to the conference championship game pretty much every year because of what he does to elevate his team. I don't think there's a player in the NFL that strikes more fear in opponents' hearts than Josh Allen. And you just look at this, and again, this type of stuff is to be expected. Steph, what do you think about this? Am I tripping for saying that Josh Allen is the best quarterback and it's not really close?
Look, Kris. Look, in 13 playoff games, Josh Allen has a passer rating of 101, 3,300 yards, 25 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. The unfortunate thing about Josh Allen is that wins are a playoff stat and doesn't entirely get the credit. You know, he has played really well throughout his career, but we all know wins are a playoff stat. When it comes down to it, Josh Allen is the most gifted NFL quarterback there is in the NFL right now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When you look at a physical standpoint with Josh Allen, I think he's the most physically gifted quarterback that the league's ever seen. I get it that like Lamar Jackson is very physically gifted, but it's not like Josh Allen. Like when you look at some of the best quarterbacks of all time, I'm not willing to say he's the most talented quarterback of all time. I'm sorry. Like I still think Aaron Rodgers is that for me personally. But when you look at Josh Allen's ability to use his legs and to be such a threat on the ground, it's something, it's going to be hard to find something like that, right? Like players like this come around not very often, which is why there's only one Josh Allen in NFL history. That he's 6'6", can launch the ball easily 70 yards down the field, can play. I think he actually does a pretty good job playing within structure. He's accurate, but not only is he accurate, he can make throws off balance with different arm angles. He's just incredible, man. And look, I think that the Bills can get to the conference championship. I even think they can get to the Super Bowl. I just go back to the Ravens, and I'm just so impressed with their roster construction. And I'm very impressed with the fact that Derrick Henry is 31 years old, and he's arguably the best running back in football. I mean, that is just absolutely crazy. So I said my piece on Josh Allen. He's the best quarterback in football. And right now, I'm not really trying to hear any argument to say that he's not the best quarterback in football. Steph, do you think it's fair to say that he's better than Patrick Mahomes?
Yes, I truly believe that Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, it doesn't equivalent because of the playoff. I mean, of the wins, the team wins. I think that's where Patrick Mahomes edges him. But as far as pure talent, you know, both are extremely talented quarterbacks. But I think that Josh Allen, given, you know, the physical attributes he has, 6'6", 245 pounds, built like a tight end, can throw the ball 75 yards downfield, and elevates his teammates as well. And doesn't have a play caller like Andy Reid, which is also a key component in this argument. But if you ask me, in my humble opinion, I do agree with you, Kris. Josh Allen is the best quarterback today.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And this is the thing, right? Like, this is why, the other day, people were saying Jalen Hurts carried his team to a victory. No, he didn't. This is carrying his team. This is a quarterback carrying his team to victory. That is the prime example. Obviously, it's not always going to look like that per se, but the way they made it sound is that Jalen Hurts did what Josh Allen did when it's not even close. That's why, like, when we look at the best quarterbacks in the game, Josh Allen, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, what they do for their teams, it's different than guys like Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa. Like, those guys are good at managing a game. They can operate an offense, but these guys at the top of the game can operate an offense, and not only operate an offense, they can elevate the offense because of what they do off structure. So, man, I walked away impressed, and I think Josh Allen's the best quarterback in football. That's just what I believe. Let's move on to the next topic. When we look at the NFC, because I think I made my point about the AFC very clear, there's two teams that stand above everybody else. When you look at the NFC right now, why is it crazy to say that there's like 6 or 7 teams that can win the NFC, right? Like, you look at Philly, Dallas, Green Bay, Buccaneers. There's probably some other teams that I'm forgetting here. Let me look at all the you look at the Minnesota Vikings. You look at the Los Angeles Rams. Like, these are all teams, even if you want to say the San Francisco 49ers, I wouldn't agree with you, but I think there's an argument to be made. You can make a case that 6 or 7 teams could legitimately win the NFC this year. And when you look at this conference coming out of this weekend, I think that the two best teams in the conference at the current moment, when you look at how they played, I think it's Green Bay and Dallas right now. I get it. Dallas lost to Philly, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you went into Philly. Philly didn't come into Dallas. And like, I think Dallas outplayed Philly in Philly. Yeah, they need to make certain plays like CeeDee Lamb. You need to make some of the catches that you could have potentially made, and they would have won that game. And I don't think outside of Buffalo winning this week that there would have been a more impressive win in football. Like, I think you know more about Dallas in week 1 than you did about Dallas in week 1 of last year. Right. Like, you go into Philadelphia, hostile environment, new coach, quarterback that hasn't played in 10 months, new personnel, new defensive coordinator, and you look as good as you looked. It's only up from here for Dallas. That's why I think right now, them and Green Bay are the best teams in the NFC. And I think that when you look at both of these teams offensively and what they can do over the air, like, they're going to be able to put points up on a lot of teams. And now we have to see how this Philadelphia defense is, right? I get it. They lost Jalen Carter, but at the same time, when you look at some of the throws that Dak Prescott was making against what a lot of people regard as one of the best secondaries in football, and even still, like, PFF ranked the Eagles, I think, is the number 1 defensive line in football. So if you lose one player, you should still have a pretty damn good defensive line if it's as good as people tell me it is. Like, they have a young offensive line. They're developing. Doc's going to get on the same page as CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. It's only week 1. And yes, you have to redevelop that rapport with your receivers year in and year out. Look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase yesterday. Look at Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase at the beginning of a lot of these seasons. People look at them as the best quarterback and wide receiver duo. They have some things that they have to work out in the beginning of the season. So, and then Green Bay, when you look at Green Bay, one thing that impressed me is that they played the run at a very high level yesterday. That was the big talking point going into this game as they lost Kenny Clark. Can they play the run at a high level? And when you look at week 1, they played the run at a high level. Now, we'll have to see with Green Bay because, yes, Micah Parsons did look good for them yesterday. But again, it's only week 1. And I think you have to take into account that over the course of a season, because Micah Parsons is an undersized defensive end, and once he starts getting more reps and teams start running at him and leaning on him, I think he's going to start to wear out at the end of the season like he has in Dallas for pretty much his entire career, right? And obviously, like, when you look at Philly, to me, like, yeah, they won that game the other day, I look at them and I say they are hanging on by a thread. They won that game based off pure championship medal and all the intangible things, right? I don't look at them and say their physical talent jumps off the page like it did last year. I think that they're like, when you look at the injuries that they sustained the other day, Landon Dickerson, I think they need to consider sitting him out because he does not look good at the current moment. Not meaning from a talent perspective, meaning from an injury perspective. You look at some of the things on their defense. You wonder about how they look without Jalen Carter. Now, I get it. Jalen Carter is going to play for them again. But you always have to wonder, like, hey, if he goes down, how is this defensive line going to look? You have to wonder, hey, with all of the carries that Saquon Barkley had last year, is it fair to say that maybe he's slowing down a bit? Because he didn't play that well against Dallas the other day. He didn't look like the same Saquon Barkley. That's where I look at this and I say, I have more confidence in Dallas right now than I do in Philly going forward because of the fact that a lot of things had to come into place for Dallas for them to play as good as they did against the Eagles the other day. And they probably should have won that game. And Green Bay, I look at them and I say, man, you dominated a Detroit team that people think could be very good this year. So, and then obviously you have Tampa Bay, who I wasn't overly impressed by yesterday. We'll see what happens with the Minnesota Vikings tonight. That's going to be an interesting game. But the NFC, it's wide open. There's about 6 or 7 teams that I think can legitimately win this thing. And it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams yesterday, by the way, beat the Houston Texans. That was a big game. And, you know, man, that Texans defense, that looks real. But Steph, what do you think about this whole, the NFC as a whole coming out of this weekend?
Well, Kris, you know, I don't think that we looked over this weekend and see any teams that really stood out. I mean, the Green Bay Packers did dominate a Ben Johnson less offensive offense and a Aaron Glenn defense. I didn't see anything really impressive with Detroit. Of course, Green Bay did look really good. They did generate a lot of pressure. Micah Parsons, we know Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is, played for the Dallas Cowboys. We followed his career. Great player. We know that. Not any stranger to that. But I don't think the NFC is wide open, if you ask me. And guess what team, which is very funny, right? Given the circumstances, guess what team led the NFC in pressures this whole week? It was the Dallas Cowboys with 42.4% pressure, and only following the Commanders with 42.2, which is a given that Dan Quinn loves to create stunts and blitz a lot, and Matt Eberflus is not generally a defensive coordinator that causes a lot of generates a lot of blitzes. So I think that's a pretty if I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, that's a pretty encouraging stat, given that you lost your best pass rusher. But I agree with you. I think the NFC is wide open. You got teams like Tampa, you got teams like Dallas, Green Bay, of course. Philadelphia Eagles are always going to have, because they had that championship mentality. They've been there before, so they do have that edge against a lot of other teams. But if you ask me, we'll see that we're going to see the Vikings today and the Chicago Bears to see how those teams look. But I will agree with you. I think the NFC is wide open.
No, it is. And it's, to me, I just look at it and I say, man, there's no team that separates themselves. And that includes the Philadelphia Eagles, because, man, it reminded me a lot of that 2023 season when Dallas went into Philly and lost to Philly. But like coming out of that game, it was pretty clear to people who like looked at it from a, with clear glasses, that Dallas was the better team. And I think that's where I'm walking away with this, where it's like, look, it's week 1 and they're only going to get better from here. That's why, like, right now, if you're asking me who I think the best team in the NFC is right now, I can't get out of my head how good Dallas played the other day. I mean, with everything holding them back the other day, for them to play as good as they did, I can't get that out of my head. So That's going to be it for the show. If you guys haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. I'll greatly appreciate that. And yeah, make sure to go check out the Stadium Pulse and Dub's Room and the Mic Drop and the Space Cowboy Show, all here on Kretschman Media. And until next time, I will see you guys on the next episode.